Hello. Hello there. This is YSHoemate, and I'm going to show you how to procedurally generate a box or cube within Unity using scripting. So, the first thing we need to do is to set up our scene and our camera. Once you select new scene and you're creating a new scene for the engine, we're going to only need the script over here, these scripts and terrain assets. These two are important. Other than that, these are all things that I added to create a little scene here. They're not necessary, but for this demonstration, I wanted to make it a little pretty. So you need to set up your camera after you set up your assets because we want to be able to see the cube when it gets generated in the game or scene. So what we're going to do is the first thing is we're going to need to create the object. So we're going to go to create empty here under game object tab, create that, and we're going to change the name. We're going to change it to PG box because we're procedurally generating a box. It's an easy naming convention to remember. So, and then after we create the box or the empty object and name it, we're going to go to add component. And we'll go under mesh here because we're going to need two of these. We're going to need filter and renderer. And these things will be utilized, these components, within our script because we can't just generate something without having the right assets or components to do it. So once we get both of our components lined up here, we're going to go ahead, well, here you go, you can see where it is or where it will be. We're going to go ahead and come down, and I'm going to select scripts, go inside general scripts. I'm going to right click in this section and go to create. And we're going to create a C# script. And it's going to be important, to know that it's in C# because that's the language we want to use. You can use JavaScript or Boo, but for this demonstration, we're going to use C#. So after we create it, we're going to name it box creation because that's what we're doing, right? We're creating a box or a cube. Okay, and see it sets up the framework here. We're going to click on open, and it will open MonoDevelop on Mac. I don't know exactly what it is on PC. So once that opens, we're going to come inside start here, and we're going to go ahead and start working with our script. And the first thing we need to do is we need to set up the framework for our script before we begin. And I just copy and paste it for time purposes. And the four things that we will need to generate this cube are vertices, normals, UVs, and triangles. These are all important to creating the cube, and we'll need each one of them. Now, after you get your framework set up here, we're going to go ahead and change game object and add component to get component because we need to get the component rather than using it within the engine because it's not there yet. We need to generate it. So we need mesh filter. Like I said, we need the component here. Clear clears the information of the mesh, so each time that it is created, it does not create it within itself again. It gets created each single time that we run the scene. So we're going to go ahead and change these float values too. I'm going to change them to 50 so we can actually see the cube once it is generated. We want to make sure that it's big enough for us to see in the camera. Then once we set those float values, we will come down, and I'm going to copy and paste this code because for time purposes. So we'll start with vertices. Now, we need the regions so you know where the vertices section begins and where it ends. It's important in C#. So it's vector 3 because it's a 3D object, and we're going to go ahead and create 8 points. So if you think of a cube, you think of the top and the bottom panels, if you will. There's the square on top and a square on bottom of a cube, right? And then 4 around it. So 6 panels in total. Now, there are 4 points on the top and 4 points on the bottom, and we will need to use that within our code we need to tell the script that there are 8 points, and then we give values to these points. We're going to make them float values so we can be more exact with our measurements. And then we'll go ahead and just make variable names for them. We're going to use P and numbers because it's easy to remember. They're points and numbers. We'll start from 0 and we'll go to 7 because 0 is a number within code. Once we set up our vertices section, we're going to go ahead and, for time purposes, as I said, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the normal section of the code. Now, set it up, I paste it, and normals. Okay, so In order for you to be able to see the object in a 3D environment, you have to set up what are called normals. And these are the directions that we'll be able to see it as the player or the camera within the scene. So we're going to go ahead and use vector 3 again because we're using a 3D object in our code. And we're going to make the naming convention pretty easy because, like I said, it's normal to create it so we can see it in different directions. So we're just going to go ahead and give them, each 4 values, and they're going to be different directions because that's what it's for. It's for normals. Once we set up our normals, I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, for time purposes, I will paste the UV code. Now, UVs, as you know, hopefully, are important because we need to be, if you want to be able to texture an object, and you're going to need UVs for that. And those are flat surfaces that are 2D in nature, so we're using vector 2 for that. And the naming convention for the variables is just another way for us to be able to process the information within the script and use a different naming convention for the variables so it differentiates from the normals and the vertices. So we go ahead and use zeros and ones and underscores, which makes it a little easier for us to be able to do that. And then once we set up our UVs, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set up our triangles because we use triangles to create 3D objects because they're the easiest things to make up a 3D object because there are only 3 vertices. The less vertices, the better for processing and runtime. So we went ahead, and if you think about a square, you have 2 triangles, at least 2 triangles to make up a square, right? So there's going to be 4 different points that these triangles use because they use 2 of the same and then 2 opposite, right? So 0 and 2 are the opposite, and then 1 and 3 are reused. And then we'll go ahead and do a little arithmetic to generate the directions and the measurements for our triangles on the cube. And we'll go ahead, and after we get this all together, like I said, we don't need to use void update. It's going to be strictly within void start. Everything looks good. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go up to File and we're going to save it. Okay. And what it's going to do is it's going to save the file within Unity. So we come back to Unity. Look at our script is updated. Wonderful. So we're going to go over to PGBox because that's the object we're working with, and we're going to want to add something called a shader to it because we want to be able to see the object once it is created, correct? So I'm going to use a basic 2D light, and it's a material. It's gray, so we'll be able to see it quite clearly. I know that the background seems gray, but it's actually within the main camera. I made the background orange, so it's a little easier for us to be able to see the cube. And once we have this all set up, we're going to want to make sure, the last step, that the cube is actually in front of the camera because we want to be able to see it, right? So just get it correct here. And I think this will do it. So once I come back to the camera, I'm gonna pull out real quick, and here's the camera, here's the object, lower it a little bit, and hopefully it gets created in front of the camera now, okay? This should from this direction that I'm looking at it. Okay, so we have everything set up on our object. Everything looks good. We got the name right, we got the filter, renderer, we got the shader. Oh, last step, I almost forgot. Wow, I could not believe I almost did that. Go to General Script, and we'll go ahead, click the PG box. We'll take the box creation script and actually just click and drag it over to the object. And look at that, it gets created right here. And that will add the script to the object so it gets created. Now, last step, easiest one, go ahead and press play. Look at that. We had a big gray cube that can be used within our game. And it's obviously sticking through the terrain floor, but I just didn't have the measurement set up. But what the point I'm getting at is that it is created through scripts. So I'll just go ahead and pull it up so you can see it more. I made it nice and big so it gets created in front of the camera. See, before scene view, usually if mesh is in a game, you'll be able to see it before you run the scene, right? Like this tree and the terrain and the water. And then I go ahead and press play. There's nothing there. Press play. There's our cube. There it is, a big gray cube. And that can be utilized within many different ways within a game. as invisible boundaries for the player, what have you. So that will be it for my demonstration, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.